Today, we're going to be looking at the discovery of an underground bunker found by Pistonheads.com member CY88. The bunker is believed to be a German military bunker that he found in the bottom of his garden in Jersey. People visiting this blog from Pistonheads.com may recall that in the secret room thread in early 2008, I said that I thought I had a Nazi bunker buried in my garden. Well, since then I decided to get off my backside and excavate it. Our house is in an old quarry, and when we bought it 5 or so years ago, the previous owners told us that there was a tunnel built by the Germans during World War II. He said it was big enough to drive into and that his father had buried the entrance during redevelopment, but not before filling it with stuff that was lying around the property. He showed me the rough location, and I've marked it on this little map with the red dot. Because this is Piston's Head, to illustrate another way, here's a location immediately behind my MX-5. Since then, an old gardener has told me that it was full of Nazi vehicles, but I've always taken that with a pinch of salt. However, I knew that there was in fact several tunnels nearby on other property. My neighbors have an above ground one, now used as a garden store which can be seen from the road, and there's another one further up the road, in a roadside bank, which is also being used as a store. The problem with mine is that it's completely underground, if there at all. So I traced some World War II reconnaissance photos of my property, which appeared to show the entrance road to my bunker. These were taken in 1945, and I've labeled the entrance in red. You can just see the road turning down in the shadow cast by the entrance. And that's where the quest began. I soon realized that, as mentioned in the last post, I needed heavy-duty equipment to continue. So today, a digger was delivered, and I got impatient. So I got some guys in, and we got stuck in on Thursday last week. As we dig down, the boulder starts to look precarious. It eventually starts to topple, and the digger driver has to steady it down. As I was taking the picture, he was actually shouting at me to move my car, which was behind the digger at the time, and at risk of being hit as he reversed. As the huge rock rolled away, though, the spotter shouted that he'd seen something that had been uncovered. We shift a few more rocks, and we reckon we found the entrance. Unfortunately, the boulder was too big for the digger to move. We estimated about 8 tons, and we needed to get behind it to keep digging. So we had to call a halt to the proceedings while I sourced a rock breaker attachment for the digger. Oh, and I hadn't warned my wife either, so I had to explain this when she came home. More to come. Logistically, the next step is going to be difficult. My wife mentioned last night that it all looked a bit messy, and I fear things are only going to get worse once the big boulder is broken up. I think at the moment that it's still holding up a bank of loose rocks. The initial postings that I put on Pistonheads.com have attracted some positive attention, and this is encouraging. Someone likens the boulder to a famous booby trap. My wife was actually fairly excited too once I had explained, and was more annoyed that I had waited for her to be there. Her first comments were, "So, you haven't been at work today then?" Followed by, "They don't leave things very tidy, do they?" The latter comment may also have had something to do with the practice holes we dug in another part of the garden so as to get the hang of operating the digger. The boulder remained a puzzling part. It's very smooth and round, unlike all the other rocks that are strewn over the entrance. And whilst we live in the bottom of a valley, meaning it could feasibly have been smothered by historic running water, the bunker/tunnel entrance, whatever it turns out to be, is clearly located right under it, which in my mind means it must have been placed there. The entrance road going into the tunnel in the wartime picture is unobscured too. Primitive booby trap? Perhaps a bit far-fetched. I'm loath to break it actually, because it would make a nice sort of monolith feature in the garden. But I guess unless someone has a Chinook handy to airlift it, I have to break it up if I want to explore further. I also actually found several things while digging the practice holes yesterday, although these were kinda insignificant to everything else. I don't think any of them are wartime articles. Some interesting old bottles and jars, and something I was quite excited about. Small carved granite trough. I was quite pleased with that, as it is fairly valuable. 300 pounds-ish? I'm now waiting for the guy to come back with the digger bits. Finally, I found a post-war photo of the property. On Friday night, my mate Dave turned up, and we resolved to try and have a look into the bunker through one of the cracks. We couldn't see much, so we cobbled together a specialist light, dismantling a lamp and taping the bulb to a pole. And so, we were ready for our first view of the inside. Because of the angle of the entrance hole and the fact that the partially open door is in the way, we can't get the camera down anywhere near the floor yet. But we can position it looking alongside of one of the roofs, and we can't see the end yet. I'm afraid that's it for today, folks. It was getting too dark to stumble around on those rocks anymore, so we covered the hole with the big rock again, just in case any inquisitive cats come exploring in the night, and headed back to base. Dave arrived after the mini hammer with his video camera charged. He tied it to some rope in case it slipped, and after dropping the light bulb down through the crack again, tried to get some footage of the inside of the bunker. The hat he's wearing is actually quite cool. It is a hard hat disguised as a baseball cap. He shot some with the bulb and some with the night vision. Then he went off to edit it and later posted it on YouTube. By this stage, Dave was gaining quite a cool following with posts on the Pistonheads thread appearing along the following lines. Any hat that Dave wears is cool in my opinion. After all, he's the man with the light gaffer taped to the end of the pole. I'm really falling for Dave now. Is he single? Everyone should have a friend called Dave. They're the human equivalent of a Swiss Army knife. All this together with the passionate argument that raged on Pistonhead in favor of keeping Bob the Boulder or destroying him saw the creation of Facebook Dave/Boulder Appreciation Group. In the meantime, Dave uploaded the first video of the footage of inside the bunker and posted it on YouTube. Right, some updates. It was a lovely day, so breakfast at the pier for starters. I've just been on the phone to Dave. He's been rigging up a video camera on a pole setup as suggested. Not sure if it'll work, but he's coming back in a moment to try. Also, I'm fairly convinced that I want to try to keep the boulder, although some heavy machinery arrived several minutes ago. The name of the side of that thing must be ironic, no? The guys that delivered the hammer drill said that they too might try to save the boulder if it were them. One also said it may be worth a bit of money. Only trouble is, they too reckon I need a bigger digger/crane if I wanted to save time in moving it. It's a dilemma, break it and go into the tunnel, or risk delaying things. Thinking that maybe some more shrubs can be sacrificed to the left of the thing, and roll into a new position that way. In order to reach the tunnel entrance, I needed to either move or pulverize the boulder, marked B above. I'm told that to purchase a boulder like it would be very expensive. That together with a wave of nostalgia is suggesting I should try and keep it. However, to move it safely, I'm told I realistically need a bigger digger. Unfortunately, the one I've got is about the biggest one that I can fit in the entrance to my house and up the driveway. Furthermore, we discussed the possibility of excavating the area marked red on the diagram and rolling the boulder there. The diggermen said that because the area marked blue is essentially loose rocks, any excavation of the red area may well cause the whole of the blue area to collapse. In fact, they advised that digging down to the floor level of the tunnel may precipitate the same result. What we decided is to try one last time to move the boulder. If we can't, it'll probably have to be minimized. We'll then clear gently to allow enough room for someone to go inside the tunnel entrance to do a recce. If it is structurally sound and large enough to make it a worthwhile space, then we'll weigh up what to do about access and any shoring up issues. However, perhaps the biggest blow to the project is that Dave won't be able to make it tomorrow, and has in fact excused himself for several days. Some might think it is because Dave, a notoriously modest guy, has decided to shun his unexpected thrust into the limelight with his pole and light. The reality is that he is off on a quick pre-arranged holiday. Not to worry, there will be others in attendance with a heavy plant. What do people reckon? Keep the Temple of Doom memento or not? I've not dared look at the cost of all of this. The guys arrived at 8 a.m. on Sunday morning. I'm hoping we won't wake the neighbors. A big tractor for pulling a big rock? Many of you will be wondering over the plight of our rotund friend, the boulder. I'm afraid the news is not good. After much umming and ahhing, we decided that the ball of doom would be broken up and removed. If anyone is interested, I have bits, some still relatively huge, others very, very tiny. There was a brief moment once the mini hammer had been attached to the digger arm, and we found that the air pressure was not working, that we almost thought we heard a sigh of relief from the big old rock, but once the valves were open, there was no turning back. Like a dentist attacking plaque, diggerman turned up the music, aimed, and got to work. I actually took a video of the primary cut, so you can see the wrath of the mini hammer in action. The tractor earns its keep. With the mini hammer retired, diggerman got back to work. Dave phoned at this point from the airport to ask about the boulder. Rather than spoil his holiday, I lied that it was tucked up safe near the lawn, and that would be there for him on his return. Richard spotting for today. A moment after this picture, Richard shouts at diggerman to stop. He noticed a cavity opening up somewhere we weren't expecting. In front of the tunnel entrance, under where the boulder was keeping sentinel, we encouraged a second obstacle. Richard tentatively investigates. It appears that the path of the digger is now blocked by a second new underground chamber, this time full of what appears to be water. A grapefruit-sized boulder topples into the hole with a worrying deep plop. We set about debating what we stumbled upon now. At this point, I must admit I was slightly downhearted. Having destroyed the boulder in order to crack on, the thought of having broken into an old septic tank or the drains was sickening. However, after prodding around the inside, the not so smelly at all water with the long stick, we found that the chambers was only about 4 feet square. Looking at the old photos and knowing where the house drains were,
we decided that we had inadvertently broken into was most probably a water tank for the tunnel, which would have allowed a tap to be located at the entrance. Well, sounded sensible to us. Diggerman said, let's cover it up and press on, and we agreed, noted where to avoid any digging for the rest of the day. The whole of the area around the entrance is full of broken rocks that had fallen from the quarry overhead. Diggerman drove in to push a few back. Now we can start going down. We finally smell victory. See video as we get near to gaining access here. Because it's all happening, we had such big plans for when we finally had enough room to get in. Some of it's on video, but ultimately it all boiled down to who was in the right place at the right time. Namely, who is nearest the door. Forget masks. Richard and Pete just happened to be the nearest, and we couldn't hold them back. The old padlock is still attached to the doors, and I followed them with the camera. The point of entry looking back into the daylight. The same view, but from further inside the tunnel. Rudimentary wiring on the ceilings attached to lamps that are rusted but still hanging. Hi folks, back at the keyboard. Just spent some time tidying up and trying to fence off the entrance for safety. We had to dig a good 10-foot deep hole, and the surrounding rock is very loose. I hope it doesn't rain. Also, a few people came around to have a look. Right, where do I start? The tunnel, because that's what we now know it is definitely real. No photoshopping here. That's Mrs. 88 having a look down at the other end above. It's over 8 feet in diameter and around 60 feet long. It's completely underground, apart from the opening we dug. No, there wasn't any vintage Mercedes or Luftwaffe uniforms. There were paint pots, well, tar pots in fact. No carpet though. There was a genuine German World War II barbed wire, as someone spotted. There's also various stuff we couldn't recognize. We haven't taken anything out or gone through it with a fine-tooth comb. There wasn't any gold bars visible to the naked eye, but then I put this into perspective by reminding myself that there is a 60-foot tunnel under the garden. Oh, and did I mention there appears to be a false floor in part of it? This is the item that someone thought was a breeze block on the video. It is in fact some sort of pump-up spray canister that can be worn on the back of the operator. We can't tell what was in it, and it seems to have brushes inside the drum. It was found lying in the bed of what appears to be a genuine World War II German barbed wire. Back to the floor, halfway down, Richard notices that the floor is covered in sand, rather than concrete. We wipe it away to see that there appears to be a metallic floor underneath. This seems to have cast bumps on it. Peter gives the floor a thud. We can't be sure, but sounds like a lid. We start clearing the sand to see if we can find the lip. At this point, we decide that we're getting a bit carried away, and that we should perhaps check the length of the tunnel first before ripping into things. Plus, the floor would be easier to check later when a bit cleaner and not in such excitement. After all, it's not like someone's going to tell me clear off for trespassing. No idea what this is/was. Interest in this thread has been growing, as have the number of fans for Dave and his light stick. As a bit of fun, I've reproduced below a number of the many shot pictures submitted by posters in the original thread. Many thanks to all the contributors. Hope you don't mind me colliding all of the images here. And finally, not a shop, but a screen grab of Dave making the front page of a leading Swedish financial website. Right, I took up the offer of assistance from two seasoned bunker explorers, Jersey SI and Bunker Monkey from Unseen Jersey. They came around tonight, and I think that they seemed quite impressed with the tunnel. They took lots of photos with the proper camera and said that they would post them up on their own site, so hopefully I can link to that in due course. Anyway, as we were photographing everything, one of them exclaimed, "That's a gun," and so I looked hard and realized that it was, although the metal had badly corroded and all the wooden bits had rotted away, so don't get angry if they don't look like Smizers and Lugers like you probably were expecting. This weapon has subsequently been identified as a British Lee Enfield rifle. So a little after finding the first weapon, they found another one, and to be honest, by this stage I just felt a little stupid for not having found them myself. But I guess I was just a bit excited at the weekend to notice. This one was at the other end of the tunnel, and like the first, the stock had rotted away. It also appeared to be a rifle. The metal on the second was in better condition, perhaps because it had been covered under the corrugated sheet, although still decommissioned. This has again since been identified as a British Lee Enfield rifle. What British rifles were doing in a German bunker, we can only speculate at the moment. No magazines or ammunition found though, although we haven't started sifting through all the dirt on the floor yet. We also found a tin can of green gunk, which the others thought might once have been a green Nazi paint, and the rings in the bucket on closer inspection turned out to contain nuts. I tried to have a look last night from a window on the first floor of the house at what was behind the garage. It seems that there may well be enough room to stick a small camera or mirror down the gap between the roof and the concrete bit. In fact, I think this might well be Dave's first task on his return. 5 p.m. landing, so perhaps a bit optimistic. Otherwise, I might climb up myself. As you can imagine, since finding the tunnel, I've also been trying to speak to people who might know a bit of history about the house. Interestingly, someone who used to work as a gardener for the old owners told me that they had told him a long time ago, I know, that there was an underground chamber, but in a different location from the one we know about now. So, just in case that's not a tall tale, I also think that I'll start by checking under the manhole covers. There are a few. Lastly, World War II historians are visiting this evening as well. We can hopefully start moving things around once they've been. I'm going to cut part 1 of this video here because this voice recording is nearly at 30 minutes and honestly I could tell this is already going to be a pain in the ass to edit. But you should stick around for part 2 because it's probably coming soon. But if you guys enjoyed, be sure to hit the like button as well as the subscribe button. And this has been Night Stories, and I'll see you guys next time.